All right, well, again, we're looking at the new you, but you've probably figured that out by now. So today, let's talk about one of the core shaping influences in our lives, our dads. You know, fathers have certainly gotten a bad rap in our society. After all, many characters in TV shows or cartoons don't exactly paint dads in the best of light. Let's look at Homer Simpson. He's kind of a joke. And what's his most famous quote? Don't! What about Peter Griffin from Family Guy? He's more of a child than a man, let alone a father. And why does it seem like Tim Allen's characters in TV shows or movies are almost always dads who need to grow up or get more involved in their sons' lives? You know, respected journalist and television critic Matt Roush once said, "It used to be that father knows best. Then we started to wonder if he knew anything at all. Dads became bumbling fools and the butt of jokes." And that's one caricature of fathers. They're dumb, uninvolved, distant, a fool. And it's really mom who holds the family together, right? But we also have another caricature in our society. It's the one that flows from pop culture's obsession with toxic masculinity and fear of patriarchy. Now those are real things, I get it. But we're too worried about men being too dominant and how that can leave negative impacts. It's confusing when you hear both of these caricatures. It's like, okay, do fathers need to be more involved or less involved? What's gonna scar our children less? Friends, what about you? Was your dad a positive or negative influence in your life? For some of us, dad's presence shapes us in positive ways. For others of us, dad's presence goes the other way. And then there are those of us who don't even talk about dad's presence as positive or negative. Why? Because we have to talk about his absence and those effects on us. What do you remember about your dad? Was it smiles, tickle fights, Saturday morning trips to a hardware store with maybe like the mandatory stop at the donut shop? Did dad look at you with delight or satisfaction? Or was it harshness, a temper, or nitpicking your every move? Did you feel like you lived under a microscope? Was it neither? Was dad physically present, but not really there? Maybe he was the dad who was always in the home office, always behind the newspaper, or maybe the lingering image you mainly remember is his back, walking out the door with a golf bag or a gun slung over his shoulder. Here's the thing. Dads are powerful shaping influences on our lives, and they form a big part of our core identity. Man, a look from a dad can light up a child's face, but another look can bring trembling lips and teary eyes and almost instantaneously. As a culture, we're starting to recover the importance of dads. Dr. Jennifer Lansford, a researcher from Duke University, wrote this in Psychology Today. Historically, mothers have received more research attention than fathers. And mothers have often been characterized as children's primary caregivers, whereas fathers have been characterized as playmates. Research now suggests that fathers play many important roles in child development. Her article and many other scholars have articles that go on to highlight how a father's supportive presence in a child's life leads to a child having better social skills, better grades in school, and how they can control their emotions better. Let me ask you, are there wounds you carry from your father? Are you proud of your dad? Are you even aware of how your dad shaped you? This would have to be a big part of the new you. What if you could have God as a loving, caring, involved, and supportive, yet all-powerful Father? What would be different? I mean, when we think of God or hear about God, do we really jump to God as Father? Most people I talk to don't really think of God at all. If they do, they tend to think of God as uninvolved, distant, or impersonal. Those people who do think of God as personal tend to think of him as Father Time, some old guy, or as a judge just waiting to come down on you. But what if we could really connect with God as a father? What if the maker of the universe, our creator, really was a good parent to us? And what would change in your life if your fundamental identity was this? child of God. Irrespective of your connection to your earthly dad, pastor and scholar J.I. Packer describes this dynamic in an amazing way. He says the thought of our Maker becoming a perfect parent, faithful in love and care, generous and thoughtful, interested in all we do, respecting our individuality, skillful in training us, wise in guidance, always available, helping us to find ourselves in maturity. Now that's a thought everyone can have. And if God is all of those things to you, loving, caring, generous, thoughtful, interested, invested, aware of how you are uniquely you, who trains you and guides you, and yes, delights in you, smiles at you, if that's your relationship to God, then you will change for the better and a new you will emerge. And this new status as God's child, it means He's always available to you. This is something we can all connect with, regardless of what our earthly fathers would like. You can say this, I had a wonderful father, and I see that God is like that, only more so. Maybe this is you. You could say, my father disappointed me here, like everywhere, but God will be different. You could even say this, here's a third response. You could say, I have never had a father on this earth, but thank God I now have one in heaven. It doesn't matter what your relationship with your father is like, was like, isn't like, or wasn't like. This relationship with God as your father is available now, and it changes who you fundamentally are. As God's own son or daughter, you have a new identity, a new you, which will flow from this new relationship, this new identity, as you spend time with Him and as you learn what He's like. You know, you can't help but change because you'll become like Him. And here's the amazing thing. How do we treat God? We try to use our minds to create who He is, what He's like. We try to use our minds to figure out what He would want from us. We don't even realize it, but we project ourselves or the cool people in our life like onto God, and we fashion Him to our own liking. We make Him convenient. And if we don't like what we come up with as God, we don't change to meet that false God. We change the false God to suit our needs. But here's the thing. How does God treat us in return? The Bible says it this way. When the fullness of time had come, God sent forth His Son so that we might receive adoption as sons. And because you are sons, God has sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, the Hebrew word for like daddy. Abba, Father. So you are no longer a slave, but a son. We call this adoption. And by faith in Jesus, you can know God as a father. You can be adopted as God's son or daughter, all part of the new you.